All right, Carson, good to see you again. We have a great topic for today. We've been talking a little bit about culture. Obviously, people are distributed more so than ever, and this leads to folks thinking about how to best keep people motivated. How do you create a culture that's a winning culture? But I guess our topic for today is really around, you know, toxic culture versus winning culture. And what have you experienced on both sides of that? What makes a culture a toxic culture? What makes a culture a good culture? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, this is a really important question. And, I really love the fact, Jeff, that over the last few years, there's been a lot more emphasis on the importance of culture. And I think part of that is due to the fact that, we've become more spread out and separated as a workforce. It's always been common to have sales teams that worked together or teams that worked together that were across the globe. Even 20 years ago, when I was a sales leader, I had teams that were in other states. And other business units. So there was a remote element to that. However, I think it's now even more commonplace. But I think that has really upped the ante when it comes to how we build that winning culture. And I think there's been more emphasis on culture because of it. Fortunately, too, there's been a lot more focus in even some of the popular books that are out there from a leadership perspective. A lot of them have been around how to foster that winning culture. I've been in both. I find some of the commonalities of a toxic work culture because, frankly, leadership always sets the tone for what the culture is going to be. Now, you don't have complete control over your culture, but there are a lot of elements that you can control, like, people's voices being heard, how you're encouraging your team to meet without leadership, to gel, and ultimately give feedback back to the leadership. But the common things I see in a toxic leadership culture can be newer managers who are untrained and left to their own devices. A leadership through fear, almost more of a dictatorial approach, where there is leading through fear and very reactive leadership, not a lot of guidance. Go out and do this or go out and sell more of this without a lot of transparency and communication. Those things are typical of toxic work environments. I remember vividly working in those environments because I remember how it made me feel as an employee, not valued. It also would be, not knowing what your role would be day to day. It doesn't breed loyalty, and it doesn't give that sense of, hey, I want to get up every day and come in to work to this place. Because even the most mundane or monotonous or, sometimes kind of boring jobs can be fun if we infuse that type of culture. And that's where I would compare and contrast with a winning culture. Winning culture, the tone is set by leadership. There's recognition, voices are heard. You're going out and proactively seeking the great unique skills and superpowers of everybody on your team, and you're asking yourself, how can I amplify everyone? How can I amplify what they're great at? How can I help them replicate that? How can I help them get to the next level? A winning culture is a destination culture. People want to work there. A great leader is not afraid to get their people promoted. In fact, they want it. They want to get everybody promoted so that everybody wants to work on their team. So they create that winning program by ensuring that people feel included, people feel like they're part of the solution and the process. And when things inevitably happen that, we don't hit the number, or, there's massive change in the organization, or the leader changes roles or whatever it is, the culture can transcend because it's bigger than the sum of the parts. It's like that 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, because we're all multipliers in that winning culture. And those are the types of things that I think really make a vibrant culture. But again, it starts with leaders, and it starts with making sure that winning culture is the outcome that we're trying to drive. What are your thoughts, Jeff? I know you've worked in both environments as well. Would love to hear how you look at toxic culture versus winning culture.
Yeah, no, those are all really good insights. I mean, first things first, every company has their own set of values and their mission statement and kind of these mantras that, they set for the entire organization. I think obviously these vary from organization to organization. none of them are ever bad. I mean, no one ever picks like, values that suck, right? But I think what's really more important is about how the message gets delivered and how those values kind of, um, seep into all of the facets of the company. For example, if you're hiring, you should probably be looking at the attributes of the values of the company when making hiring decisions and making sure that the people you are employing are going to fit those, value criteria, right? Whatever they are, they just need to be, they can't just be something that's on the website. It needs to be something where people are reminded of it constantly, whether it's in like the all hands meeting every week or whatever it is, or recognizing somebody for displaying the value. You need to reinforce the value so that people are really thinking about them all the time. And I worked in a company that I think made a really great turnaround. I worked in a startup for a very long time where maybe our values and our culture wasn't initially great, but got a lot better as we matured. And I think, some of the values that we instilled that I think really separate positive culture from a negative culture were around seek to understand and go to the source were like two of my favorites. And the reason I like those is because inevitably you're going to have conflict within an organization. People are going to butt heads, especially in a distributed environment. People are more likely to miscommunicate with one another, misunderstand one another. And it's really important, A, to not make assumptions, right? You need to be able to seek to understand, get to the ground truth of what the person's intent is, as opposed to just get angry at them. But more importantly, go to the source, which is, if I've got an issue with someone, I'm going to go to the source. I'm going to go directly to them and explain what's frustrating me. What creates toxicity in the workplace is when people are starting to gossip to each other behind each other's backs. And generally that happens in places where people don't feel like they can go and speak directly to someone else. And that's usually a lack of trust. When trust is eroded is when people start to gossip. They can't have direct one-to-one conversation. So I'd say that that's massively important. I think that cultures that celebrate winning are important, but also cultures that celebrate losing and the growth opportunity. Cultures that look, I think everyone assumes that being positive is what makes a culture good. I would actually argue that sometimes negativity can be good for the culture if you're using the negativity to fuel growth. And so cultures that are looking at learning, if we lose opportunities with a customer, if we're having meetings internally to understand why we lose, that's actually a good thing, right? That's actually helping us to get better. So I think culture is complex. It's a lot of it is around positivity and instilling the values, but a lot of it is also about growth and learning and making sure that we're all working together to get better. Because the one thing that everyone really doesn't like is a overtly positive culture when the company's not doing well and people are not, reading the room and being forced to make difficult decisions or confront what's going on, right? No one likes that. Even if it's a very happy place where you get, scooters around the office and free M&Ms and whatever, right? So those are all the things that I think are pretty important when it comes to culture.
Couldn't agree more. I love that. Culture requires intentionality. It requires, keeping a steady hand on the wheel, which isn't always maintaining unending positivity. There's an element of realism that is required. But at the same time, it's all about people working with people to help people. And I think that's what ultimately, there's a lot of different types of culture, growth culture, a positive culture. But I think at the end of the day, you have to apply intentionality to create the type of culture that you want, and you've got to invest in it every day.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Good stuff. As always, Jeff, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.